Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Chris Power. I'm the chairman of the Audiovisual Cultural Forum, and I'm here to ask the stupid questions because you don't have to then. And what the burning question is how, as an employer, do I go about getting an audiovisual technician apprentice? That's basically it. And so to help me address this question is the man himself, Jack Laidlaw from Middlesbrough College, who's the head of program for this particular section. Jack, hello,
Hi,
good afternoon.
Hi mate, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. So the question is implicit in the title, well, it's explicit to be honest, is if I'm an employer and I want to get an audiovisual apprentice technician, what do I have to do? Maybe you'd like to just sort of give us an introduction in basically how it started, what's gone into it, and how I would go about it.
Yeah, sure. There's a short answer and a long answer, as with most things. The short answer is you recruit someone and you put them onto an apprenticeship. The longer answer we'll go over as a group over the next hour or so, I think. But in a nutshell, you find someone you think is interested and that you would like to employ. And that you would like to be part of your company, and you make them an apprentice and they become an employee of yours, and then hopefully after 2 years they gain their apprenticeship and also a foundation degree. There are other there's a more detailed way that we can go into that, and we will do later. And
Okay.
to be absolutely honest with you, I'm not the right person to ask, which is why we've got so many other people here.
Exactly, good. And it struck me as this is a very proactive kind of thing, because you don't have, it struck me, a big sort of warehouse full of apprentices ready to go. It's been a long process, and the background of it is very interesting to me, because it started, how long ago did the process start at Middlesbrough College?
Well, I mean, we started actually writing the apprenticeship in 2019, but we've been developing and delivering AV courses since 2016, and what we started in 2016 has now become the apprenticeship, so 5 years.
Wow. So that's and how did you go about starting widening it up? Because I know there's been a trailblazer group in the embryonic stage of getting this ready. So maybe you'd like to sort of tell us a little bit about how it's come about and what kind of things that you're really trying to cover here to sort of touch all the bases, because I believe it was a music technology course originally. And is that correct?
Not quite. No, not quite. So we've been running music technology courses here for about 20 years.
Okay.
Higher education music technology courses, I should say. And so we had a staff team and the resources in place to deliver music tech, but we also had the video side of things and lighting and on-site events and whatnot. And so we gathered our resources, if you like, and put that towards developing an AV course that we could run alongside music technology as well. I can go into the history of it a little bit more, and I will do when I run the presentation. But again, the short answer to the sort of how did you put the group together is I asked Graham to contact everyone and ask if anyone wanted to be involved, and we ended up with quite a big group.
That's Graham Massey from Jacobs Massey?
That is Graham Massey from Jacobs Massey, that's right.
Okay.
I just assume everyone knows him, so I just first
I know,
name
I'm
terms.
just sort of making sure. and like everybody, I've got a little prop here. By the way, if people are thinking, why am I holding an iPhone? It's not that I'm sort of really addicted to the Church of Apple. I hold no no allegiance there, but the questions are going to be popping up during this presentation, the whole event, and I'll be getting them here. So when I break off and say, oh, I've got a very interesting question here. Someone's asking Jack, where do I go to get your chair that you're sitting in, or something stupid like that.
IKEA.
Anyway, that's enough branding probably. We've touched Apple and IKEA in one go. So maybe you should go into your presentation, Jack, just to sort of talk about how it's grown and what you've done, because I know it's a very collaborative effort, and you've mentioned Graham already, but there's a trailblazer group that you've formed together to sort of make sure it's sort of a very broad kind of set of people involved.
That's right, yeah. So I'll say a little bit about the history of it and about what it's turned into, and also about what we're doing as a training provider to provide the training for the apprenticeship standard. As I say, it began in 2019, and oh, there we go. So hopefully everyone can see my slides now. It's a level 5 apprenticeship standard, which is equitable with what's called a foundation degree. I'll talk a little bit more about foundation degrees shortly. And it's a 24-month standard as well. So if you take on an apprentice, you would expect to have them as an apprentice for 24 months. So I've already covered this. So yeah, Graham Massey was our group chair, which means that he took oversight of the entire process. Technically my role was as facilitator, and we ended up with representatives from over 30 companies on what's referred to as a trailblazer group, and that is a group of employers who would like to be involved in the development of a new apprenticeship standard. They weren't all AV companies, but they were all companies that employed what you might call audiovisual technicians or audiovisual members of staff. And these are some of the employers that were involved. So all of these employers signaled that they wanted to be involved in the development of the standard, and to a greater or lesser extent input content onto the standard. So a really important thing to stress is that all of the content on the AV standard that we're discussing is specified by employers. So I was involved from a facilitator point of view because I've got experience in putting courses together and making them work from a curriculum point of view so that they can practically run as a course. But I didn't specify this content. I just took what the employers were giving me and I sort of whipped it into shape, if you like. The first part of the process was to assign what are called duties, and they're the duties associated with an entry-level audiovisual technician role. And the way that we did that is that I asked all of the employers to give me some entry-level job descriptions. And I essentially merged 9 job descriptions into one by looking for commonalities in them. So we ended up with 17 duties that were agreed by the group across these 9 job descriptions that I started with. So we ended up with 17 things that all of the group agreed that an entry-level audiovisual technician should be able to do. And I've just put a couple of examples there. So the first one is kind of pretty lengthy, and it covers quite a lot. And then there are other smaller duties such as duty 2, which is things like providing unguided support and technical management of events. By the way, all of this is available on the Institute for Apprenticeship website. If you look for the listing for the Audiovisual Technician Standard, all of this is there. The duties are there, and the what we call KSBs are there that I'm going to talk about shortly. So knowledge, skills, and behaviours then are sort of drawn down from duties. So you take that duty 1 and you say, right, it basically says be able to set up sound reinforcement equipment and video projectors and lights. So what are the things that you need to be able to know, and what skills do you need, and generally what sort of ways do you need to behave in order to do all of these duties. So we ended up with quite a lot of KSBs. For example, things like connection of audio system components, signal flow and conversion, integrated AV solutions for specific requirements, and stuff like AV over IP. And then we've got a list of skills as well. So things like integrating a projector into a presentation, more generic things like root cause analysis and problem solving, and then being able to clearly advise and guide event participants as well, in whether that be on-site events or online events. And then we've also got some behaviors there as well. So again, all of this is up there on the IFA website. You can have a look at it. But we start with the duties and then we go down into the knowledge, skills and behaviors. And the general idea is, in order to be able to get your level 5 AV apprenticeship qualification, you need to be able to evidence that you can do all of these things, all of these knowledge, skills and behaviors. There's also then what's called an endpoint assessment. And in the process of developing the AV standard, we had to also develop the endpoint assessment. So apprentices need to go through this endpoint assessment in order to get their apprenticeship qualification. And just in brief, our endpoint assessment for AV is a 2-stage process. It involves what we call a scenario test. So where apprentices give written responses to 2 particular project briefs. One is an online event scenario and one is a systems integration scenario. And then the other one is what's called a professional discussion underpinned by a portfolio of work. And on the training program that we've written to train the apprentices, we help them to develop that portfolio of work in order to help them get through that professional discussion. So that's the apprenticeship endpoint assessment. And then we also do some separate assessment on the foundation degree that I'll talk about in a bit. And Karen's going to talk about apprenticeship assessment a little bit more generally later on. So I've put this up here just to show the difference between the amount of time apprentices are expected to spend on their working duties and on their training or off-the-job activity. So it's an 80-20 split. So the idea is that you take someone on, they are your employee, they will be an apprentice, and you break up their time, their contracted time, into 80% working, essentially doing whatever you need them to do, and then 20% of that contracted time training. And that training is being with us on the foundation degree. So the training program that we've developed then, which you can think of as adjacent to the apprenticeship, it contains all of the same content, but it is not the same as an apprenticeship. It is a distinct training program in its own right. It's a foundation degree in audiovisual technology. And Chris, if you wanted a foundation degree in audiovisual technology and you didn't want to be an apprentice, you could do this degree. So it's a standalone program, I should say. But what we do is, if you came to me and you said, Jack, I've got 10 apprentices, I've just brought them on, I want to put them all on the Audiovisual Technician Apprenticeship standard, can you train them? I would say, yes, I can, because I have a bespoke training program which has been written specifically for the AV apprenticeship standard, and it's a foundation degree in audiovisual technology. So for those that don't know, a foundation degree is a standalone program. It's a standalone qualification. It's just the first 2 years of what you might think of a normal 3-year degree. So they're quite widespread now, and they're usually used for delivering technical training. Our foundation degree will be validated by the Open University, who are our higher education partners. So our graduates of this program will get a degree from the Open University. It includes all of the content which is on the apprenticeship, as I say. And as I said before as well, it enables the apprentices to develop the evidence that they need to get through the endpoint assessment. And it's a 2-year course, which matches with the duration of the apprenticeship, and it's part-time. So they can work for that 80%, and then they can study part-time with us for that 20%. And it's also an online course. So although we, as a tutor group, are based in the northeast of England, the students can be based anywhere that they like, anywhere where the work is, wherever the employers need them to be, because all the tuition is done online. And then they then go and put that theoretical tuition into practice in the workplace. So I'm going to skip through a little bit more of this stuff now, because I've been talking for quite a while. The first steps, if you wanted to take on an apprenticeship, would be to go to the apprenticeships.gov.uk website, where you can make an account called an apprenticeship service account as an employer. You'll then have to recruit someone. It may be that we might be able to find someone who is either based in the Northeast and willing to relocate, or is already based roughly where you are as an employer and looking for work. I have been in contact with quite a few people who are interested in the AV apprenticeship for being an apprentice. However, I would say that 9 times out of 10, the way that this is going to happen is that employers are going to have to recruit an apprentice and then come to us and say, we've got an apprentice, can we put them onto this standard? That's going to be 9 times out of 10 the way that it's going to work. We will then take the apprentice and put them onto our foundation degree, as I've been discussing. And we've also got an endpoint assessment organization already ready to go. And Karen will talk a little bit more about that later on. The important stuff, so who pays? I should say, just before I go through this, who pays, I need to caveat it with the fact that we're still waiting for the final tick in the box from the Institute for Apprenticeships with regard to what they call the funding band. And what that means is how much money the government will pay towards the training and the assessment of the apprentice. That decision hasn't been made yet. Graham and I have been working on it quite a lot in order that we try and get the government to put as much money in as possible. But they do set a hard limit on this. So for argument's sake, they might say 15 grand is the absolute maximum we're going to give to train and assess one apprentice. But we're waiting to hear back on that. So with that caveat, who pays? So obviously the employer needs to pay the wages. Your apprentice is an employee of yours, and their wages need to be paid by yourselves. And that is a national minimum wage at the lowest. Plus there's a slight uplift for any that go into the second year of their apprenticeship. You can, of course, pay them more if you want to. In terms of the training, who pays for the training? Companies with a pay bill over 3 million will already pay into the apprenticeship levy. Now that money sits there and is waiting to be spent on apprentices. And the funding for training and endpoint assessment comes out of that apprenticeship levy that you've already paid into if you've got a wage bill over 3 million. The government apply a 10% top up to your funds. So essentially, I think that what that means is they'll chip in 10%. That sounds like to me. If you haven't got enough funds in your apprenticeship levy pot, you need to pay 5% of the outstanding balance and the government pays the rest. If you don't pay the apprenticeship levy, if you've got a wage bill below 3 million, you pay 5% of the outstanding balance and the government pays the rest. If you employ fewer than 50 employees, the government pays all of it, which is quite good. Again, we're dependent on the funding band IFA decision for this, so we're still waiting for that to come back. And so hopefully it'll be the outcome that we're looking for, and employers won't have to pay anything at all towards the training of apprentices. But as I say, we're waiting to find out on that decision.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks for that.
That's all right, Chris.
And it sounds, well, from what I'm seeing, it's not only a very difficult course, the preparation of, you've done a really sound job getting all those people together. So I've got a question already, actually, funny enough. It's just a general question from Cameron Pickett. If the slide decks are going to be available, and I've had an affirmative from this end at Jekkers Massey, so that's a yes to that. And so that's, if you want to go to the slide deck, which will be available directly afterwards, because we're going live now, as you can see, obviously live. And I'm trying not to swing too much around in my seat because it's a swivel seat. And so actually, maybe, I don't know if I'm the ideal candidate to sort of take a foundation course myself, Jack, but thanks for offering.
I think you do really well.
But I'm probably a little bit too old to get some of the newer skills. But the thing from a personal point of view, I was thinking actually some of the soft skills in the skills and behaviours and that section is quite important when people are dealing. It's not something that often, there's a lot of button pushing and the actual physical things you have to do, but the actual approach to other people, which is the thing that doesn't often come out. is a very important sort of skill to you need to gain over a year to be over the years to sort of really operate, because obviously you're dealing with other people coming in, and that will be brought out through this apprenticeship. That's kind of an important thing as well, how you are as a person and how you interact.
Yeah, sure. And a lot of that made it onto the standard and has subsequently made it through to the foundation degree. So one of the modules that I deliver in the first year is called professionalism and communication. And that is all about being able to communicate with colleagues, with clients, both in writing and verbally, being able to give presentations, maybe to clients or also maybe to colleagues. I'll say a little bit more about it at the end when we get into the course specific stuff. But yeah, we've got a professionalism module in the first year and in the second year as well.
Cool. And maybe we can move on to our next live person, which I think on my list, in fact, I can't see my list, but there's a lot of names down here. So who is next? Maybe you can see that, Jack.
It's
I'm not
Holly.
a very good chairperson, am I?
No, that's all right. I think it's Holly next.
Holly. Welcome. Now the trouble, Holly, when I obviously come to you is I've seen that word, welcome to the warehouse, and I'm thinking, where are you? Where are you? So now you're part of the team that helped Jax filter through and look at the specifics, the IT and digital specifics of the candidates that an employer will put to you. Maybe you'd like to just explain a little bit where you fit into the whole picture and what people can expect when they're coming through.
Okay, so I work in the recruitment team. Our team is split off into two areas. So I basically will recruit for an apprentice to fill a vacancy. The sales contact from the opposing team, they would make the appropriate appointments with the employer to identify the expectations and obviously go through the job description to make sure there's sufficient information in there for the qualification standard. But if the employer didn't have an apprentice that they would like to put into that position themselves, it would then be down to myself to identify a suitable candidate to put forward for consideration. And that's basically what I do.
Okay. And one of the questions that's coming in onto my little iPhone here, which maybe you can help, Katie Jane Minter has asked, will they need to be close to Middlesbrough College physically in order to do the apprenticeship, or can they be based anywhere in the UK? That's quite an important question. So what's your take on that? I kind of know myself, but I'd be interested to see how that fits into the process.
So I haven't had anything confirmed as to whether this is going to be only local candidates or not, but I can't imagine that it would be subject to one specific area if it's a qualification that's obviously taken place where you guys are.
Yes.
As long as we can obviously have the same conversations and I can still carry out the regular checks that need to be checked, and I can still identify a suitable candidate from an unsuitable candidate, then I do believe that would be fine. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So as Jack suggested to me, for example, well, I'll take two examples. He said, well, if I wanted to do the apprenticeship and I'm down in London, but I've got the resources to be able to do the online sections and I can operate practically, so I could apply and say, actually, I'd like to do this foundation course, which probably at my age is well needed to refresh everything that I do know. And if the Cultural Forum expands so much, even more, and we're based in London and I need to take on an apprentice, it's quite possible to do it via Middlesbrough College, but I don't have to come up to Middlesbrough. Yeah?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the bottom line is that actually it doesn't matter where you are, you can approach Middlesbrough to facilitate. You can have a conversation, and because not everybody will be around the local area, although it'll be a very good, I would think it's a very good catchment area for things, and it's a sort of, it can be anywhere. I suppose the point I'm trying to get to is that really it's ideal because it's an online course. You just need to be operating somewhere where you can have access to equipment to sort of use to practice your theory that you're getting in online modules. And Jack has already pointed out to us, there's a lot of really good information to get in the theoretical sense. But the other 80% is you're actually practicing and doing it, no matter where you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So it could be a novice who's just started somewhere and they can enroll, or it can be someone, we'll say old dog like me, who wants to learn a little bit more about what's going on, which actually is, that's why I'm here to answer stupid questions. Actually, maybe I should do that. And that's kind of hits to the point of the matter. So you're coordinating, Middlesbrough's facilitating, but anybody can ask the question.
Yes, anybody can obviously apply for the position, but necessary eligibility criteria would still need to be checked.
Yes, of course. Okay, naturally. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that I haven't really asked or broached? I think that was the question that I was sort of trying to clear up. And where else when it goes from Jack, who else do you work with as a matter of interest within Middlesbrough?
Myself?
Yeah, yourself. Who do you directly sort of, do you, actually, if it's like 100 people, then you don't need to go into that, but.
Yeah, I mean, our team is, I wouldn't say it's a huge team, but we have a person that we directly report to, and in my case, it would be Tracy.
Okay, Tracy. Well, I think she's coming on this call at some point, and I think that winds it up for me. But I'm very grateful for you coming on and sort of. I was looking at the warehouse sign at the back. Sorry, I'll try and block that out. But very nice to speak to you, though. And later on, something may come up in the questions, and then we'll come back to you. Thanks very much.
No problem. Thank you for your time.
Okay. And now we'll be going. Can we go back to you, Jack, because you're program leader, Middlesbrough College?
I am. That's right. Yeah, just to sort of wrap that one up. Just to be clear, the apprentices can be based anywhere.
Yeah.
The geographic location is not an issue at all because the course is an online course. Sorry, my phone's just started ringing. So it doesn't matter where they're based. We've written and validated the course as an online course. And just to touch on that, where you were talking about equipment there, I have a list of practical equipment that apprentices need access to in order to put the theoretical tuition that we give them into practice. And that the first point of contact with an employer is that conversation around, have you got the equipment that you need? Have you got the software that you need? And also the entry criteria for the course. So it doesn't matter where they're based.
So this is anywhere in the UK. Would I be correct in saying that? So anybody from anywhere can.
Well, you would like to think it's as simple as that, wouldn't you? But in their infinite wisdom.
Like I say, I'm here to ask the stupid questions, but I know it's got a little more. There'll be more detail there.
Well, I'm here to give you a stupid answer because in their infinite wisdom, the Department for Education have split up apprenticeships in provision into England, Scotland, and Wales, and so our AV apprenticeship standard that we've just written is validated and approved for companies in England. And when I pressed them a little bit more on that, they told me that as long as the employees did more than 50% of their duties in England, that qualifies. So the answer as ever is not simple, But we can say yes, they can be based anywhere in England. If they're not based in England, as long as they do 50% or more of their business within England, is the answer to that one. But to be honest with you, I think that's quite a niche thing. Unfortunately, if you've got a business that's based in Scotland or Wales, then you're probably going to have to go through a different apprenticeship service, and then that's the point at which my knowledge just stops completely, unfortunately.
Okay. As ever, the world is not an easy place to negotiate, or in this case, not even the United Kingdom. So I get that. I know it's going to be, yes, we'll leave it at that. Now, let's see, I'm getting some questions coming in. John McAvoy asks, will Middlesbrough College be partnering with any other colleges in other parts of the country to help deliver the apprenticeship?
No.
That's a very straightforward, good answer. No.
I can say more about that, but
yeah,
it's no, because it's not practical, and it's not something that we want to do.
Okay. Well, it's good, and we'll cancel that answer out, so we'll know now. So if nobody else asks that'll be good. And David Willie has asked, when do you expect to get final government approval for the apprentice? When will this go live? It sounds kind of imminent. I mean, you're probably waiting.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and a really important point to touch on. So we have been planning for a January 2022 launch, and we are still keeping all of our fingers crossed that can happen. Everything is in place now, with the exception of the funding ban decision, and so we are sort of at the mercy of the Institute for Apprenticeships at this point, waiting for that funding ban decision to come through. Once that happens, everything else is ready to go. So again, fingers crossed for January, but at the minute it's still a watch this space. I wouldn't want to say to anyone, yes, we're definitely going to be able to go in January, just in case. Why not?
So as you put it, it's just that last tick that's needed. Everything else is ready, and we await, and it's probably going to be, we're hoping it will be January, beginning of 2022, which is when a lot of people, I'm sure, are hoping to. We're going to be moving forward. So that answers that question. And who shall we move on to next? Sorry, you've probably got a more comprehensive list than I have.
No, you're all right, Chris. That's absolutely fine. I'm happy with my role. I think we're going to hear from Karen next.
Thank you.
Karen.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Hedger. I work for AIM Assessment. And Jack has mentioned the word assessment a few times. We are what is known as an endpoint assessment organisation. So that assessment plan that Jack talked about, all the trailblazer employers got together and looked at knowledge, skills and behaviours, and then they decided how best and how most appropriately to assess those. And as Jack has said, they came up with two ways of doing this, through a scenario test and a professional discussion supported by the apprentice's portfolio. So our role in this is we come in right at the very end of the apprenticeship as an objective assessment organisation. So we will have had nothing to do with the delivery of the apprenticeship, either through the college or through any of the employers. So we are completely objective in this. So we work with industry professionals, and we on a freelance basis. So our role is to work with to recruit freelance people who are professionals in your industry, which, by the way, if anyone is interested in that role, would be delighted to hear from you. Obviously, you can't assess your own apprentices, but you can assess someone else's. So we've got this. So we've got the apprenticeship, and your apprentices will have been with you for probably 2 years. The minimum amount of time they can be with you is a year, and that'll be for an apprentice who isn't doing the foundation degree. And I should say that the foundation degree is not mandatory for this apprenticeship. I believe that's the case, Jack, isn't it? Not mandatory. It's being offered by Middlesbrough.
That's true. That's true.
Right. Yeah. So let's go with the scenario that we've been talking about. So as your apprentice is approaching this end of the 2-year period, there comes a point which is known as the gateway point, and that's the point at which you as the employer and Middlesbrough as the provider and the apprentice all agree that that apprentice has met all the knowledge and the skills and the behaviours. They are fully competent as an audiovisual technician, good to go, good to be assessed. So at this point, this is where you sign something to agree that, and then we can come along and assess. If I could remove the word assessment from endpoint and replace it with achievement, I would, because that's what it really is. It's about the point at which the apprentice is completed, and now they're demonstrating their skills to the assessor. So this will show that once the apprentice, if the apprentice doesn't stay with the employer who's employed them for the last couple of years, and they're moving on somewhere else, the fact that this apprentice has achieved their apprenticeship through this objective endpoint assessment means that anyone else can take them on. So if you're an employer who has an apprentice, but you're wanting to recruit someone, a new entrant to industry, and they're coming to you with this AV apprenticeship, you can be certain that they have all those skills that you need to start at that level. And that's the whole point of this. And it comes at the end for that reason, because it's an accumulation of all the knowledge and the skills and the behaviours. The relationship with us starts quite a bit earlier. We need to know that there are apprentices, that you have apprentices, so that we can appoint those assessors. So we need plenty of notice. And indeed, it's up to the employer to choose the endpoint assessment organisation. It may not be us, there may be others. There are lots of endpoint organisations, and there may be others. So it's up to you to choose. If your provider has a good relationship, a specific relationship with an endpoint assessment organisation, they may recommend to you. But however that happens, you need to register your apprentice, and at that point, that enables us then to send the apprentice and the provider and employer some support materials so that your apprentice can start to prepare for that endpoint. So we would send, for example, sample scenarios so that your apprentice can practice. You can practice with them, so that when they come through this magical gateway, to this end point, nothing is going to be a shock to them. They should be fully prepared for this. The other assessment is a professional discussion, and it's a really good idea to practice that with your apprentice, talking about what they've done during the apprenticeship, talking through some of the practical skills. And particularly, this is where the behaviours tend to draw out. Chris mentioned about the behaviours, and that's a really important point of the whole apprenticeship. And in the professional discussion, that's where the assessor can start to draw that out from the apprentice. The scenario test will be testing their skills. Professional discussion will be looking at the rest of it. And from day one on their apprenticeship, the apprentice will have been starting to develop a portfolio of evidence. So they'll be recording all that they've done. It might include documentations of the activities. It might include your employer reports on their performance. It can include a whole range of documents. When they reach the gateway point, we ask to see that portfolio, which we give to our assessors, and they'll use that to devise some questions for that professional discussion. So what you can be assured of is that your apprentice will be assessed on their skills and the rest of their behaviours, and it'll look back at their development across the apprenticeship. If they pass, they've passed, but there is opportunity also to show a distinction. So it's about achievement. It's about achievement. One thing I should say is that this is absolutely not connected to the foundation degree that Middlesbrough are offering. Yes. So the success on the degree is not dependent on the endpoint assessment of the apprenticeship. So if they don't pass the apprenticeship, it doesn't mean they failed their degree. They're completely separate.
Well, thanks very much for that, Karen. That's a very comprehensive sort of summation of of what your part in the process is. And Jack, would you like to add something to that?
No, I think that was extremely well covered. Just to reinforce the last point that Karen made there about the independence of the foundation degree and the apprenticeship. So and this is something that I understand at first glance can be a little bit they're different, but the way that I like to try and unlock this and try and explain it to people is to just go through that sort of thought experiment of you take on an apprentice, you need a training provider to provide that 20% off the job training. That's where we come in, and in order for us to provide that training, we need some sort of educational program to put that apprentice on, and that happens to be the foundation degree that we've written that has the same content on. So they are separate things, there are separate qualifications, but one sort of serves the other. The foundation degree serves the apprenticeship. And
what you're I'm assuming what the evidence you'll be accumulating for the degree will actually probably be in practice what they submit as their portfolio.
For the portfolio.
Or they'll be separate, yeah. So the two things work. It's not unheard of at all that there are optional qualifications.
Yeah, and it means for the apprentices, if they're successful, they come out with their level 5 audiovisual technician apprenticeship qualification and a foundation degree in audiovisual technology.
It's another string to that bow, to go further with, isn't it? It's just an added value.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a few more questions that have come here, and maybe Jack and Karen, you can stay on the line just in case you want to add here, or we can add afterwards. I've had a question from Digital Vision AV has asked, will the employer need to provide the apprentice with any technology such as test equipment, software, tools, etc. to complete the course? I think that's coming out, and that would be a yes, but just to direct it directly to Jack.
Yeah, the answer to that is yes. There is a list of practical and equipment and software that they need, and I'm going to send that out to everyone who's attended this event after the event.
Excellent. And
possibly also worth adding to that it's likely that those assessments will take place on the employer's premises, and either that or at Middlesbrough. But if this is largely online, I imagine, and especially if apprentices around the country, then we would undertake that at the employer's place of work.
All right, that's a very good point. Thanks for that, Karen. And David Willey, who asked a question earlier, has got a supplementary question, and maybe you, Jack, would be able to answer this best. Does the course apprenticeship count towards the VIXA, which is another professional body, CTS points? You got any official sort of line on that?
I do have an official line on it. It doesn't count towards any CTS qualification. However, VIXA were hugely supportive of the entire process. And if you look on the apprenticeship standard that you can download from the website, and again, I'll send links out to all of this stuff to everyone afterwards, you'll see on the standard that it states that a VIXA have indicated that the knowledge, skills and behaviours, so the curriculum content on the apprenticeship standard, is equitable with the CTS accreditation. So it doesn't give you CTS accreditation, but they have stated that it's equitable with CTS accreditation. Essentially, it's similar content.
Yeah. And G. Wigmore has asked, are the freelance AV assessors appointed on a voluntary basis? It's a question for
paid.
Paid.
Yeah, paid roles, yeah, they are. And they are most definitely paid roles. And the most important thing is that the assessor has the technical knowledge. Not to worry at this stage too much if you've not had experience of assessment. We will train. We provide the training assessment. The most important thing is that you have the technical expertise, because what we want for any standard that we work with is that when an assessor goes into an employer's premises, that employer has full confidence that the assessor knows what they're doing, that the assessor is fully professionally competent, because I can understand from an employer's perspective, you've had an apprentice for 2 years, and then you might think, well, who is this person who's coming along to assist them? So it's absolutely crucially important that you've got that credibility within the industry, and we will support with the training.
Well, maybe G Weekmore, if you've got a supplementary question to that, or if you'd like to say a little bit more about what you're thinking about, we'll be able to sort of sum that up and look at it.
Please do circulate our email address, Chris, for anyone who wants to have a chat about that offline.
Absolutely. So, Jack, where shall we go next?
Can I just jump in with that?
Sorry, yes, please.
Yeah, just a thought, actually. It might be worth just reminding people that when you're talking about recruitment apprentices,
yes,
you can offer an apprentice to an existing employee, and it doesn't have to be somebody new from outside, providing the apprentice providing this is new learning. You might want to think about apprenticeship as someone who you already employ, who's perhaps learning some new skills, and then they would absolutely be entitled to be eligible for an apprenticeship. It's worth looking into that as well.
That's a really good point, Karen.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to piggyback on that as well and say something else. So the spreadsheet that I'll send out later, which has the list of equipment and software that the apprentices needed, has another tab which deals with entry criteria for the foundation degree. So broadly, because it's a foundation degree, we look for level 3 qualifications. It's things like BTECs and A-levels. However, given the circumstances of this specific program, because it's quite niche and because we know that we're probably going to get quite a lot of entrants who don't have level 3 qualifications, we are able to, with a combination of assessing previous experience in AV and some online academic modules that we ask them to do, we're able to enroll on that basis. So if you have someone who in mind who you think you would be good for the apprenticeship, if you can, the quicker that you can give them some experience, the better. So if you can take them on a work experience point of view and give them a few months of experience prior to enrolling, that's great. That's the way to play it, I would say.
Okay. I think we've got Sandra coming up next. Is that right, Jack?
You're right, Chris. Nailed it.
Is Sandra?
Hello.
Hello, Sandra. I can hear you.
You can hear me. Good.
Sandra.
Hi.
I suppose you're looking at all this and going, I've done all this so many times. I should introduce you because you work over at White Light Limited, and you have long experience because White Light have been using apprentices and you've been training, so you've got your own thing for how long would it be now that you've had that? It's been a very long time, I would imagine.
It's 10 years now, I think.
10 years.
10 years. So our history is that we started, I probably should just mention the company quickly. We are a technical solutions and provider. And so we do everything from AV installations and service right the way through to supplying theatres with predominantly hire equipment. We also have production teams. We have technical teams in venues, specifically Central Hall, Science Museum, Illuminate are our 2 bigger venues. But we also provide wet and dry hire, which means the kit and the people to go out and do events in venues, places like the Science Museum, the Natural History Museum, and lots of the palaces and approved venues, basically. So yes, our background is that we used to use the theatre technical apprenticeship, even though we predominantly have a warehouse where they start and then they go out and work on events with the production teams. But what we found was it gave them a good grounding in all the types of equipment that any type of technician would use, be it a theatre technician or an AV technician. And predominantly our production technicians, you could call AV technicians, they sometimes just tended to have a bit more of a steer in lighting than they did in AV. When we became a provider in venues, then we needed more of an AV skill set, which we, as we all know, can be quite a different skill set from a point of view from a technician with microphones and projectors and screens and LED panels and so on and so forth. So we firstly used that. Then a bit like Jack's journey, we then the managing director at the time, I wasn't here at the time, that's how I ended up here, funnily enough, is through apprenticeships for technicians. I was working in a venue as an HR manager, and Brian and I met and we talked about the fact that we didn't want day release anymore. So obviously this then leads into the change to the standard, which was the creative venue technician, which is a very broad technical apprenticeship at level 3. And that's basically, we were on the trailblazer for that as standards changed and we moved into that. And that we were the first employer to actually employ anyone on that standard, on the new standard, pass our first cohort through. They went on the journey with us. It was a painful journey, I'm not going to lie. I think being the first on a new standard was like that. And Jack and I have shared the pain on what it's like to actually create that apprenticeship and be on the trailblazer and then fight for the funding that you believe is right for that level of training that the training providers need. So we've done that successfully for a few years now. We were very excited to hear about this because a level 3, sometimes our guys want to go on and do the next level up. And I have to say, I think in the industry, those of us that were on the trailblazer were weary after 4 or 5 years of putting that through and getting it actually cleared. So everyone kept saying, could you look at a level 4? Could you look at a level 5? But basically the level 5 for AV was obviously being created. And just on a caution on that, the creative venue technician is actually being merged at the moment with the live event technician, and John, my colleague, is on at the moment on this session. Basically, the thing that I want to talk about is really for employers to say what it's actually like to employ an apprentice, and not to maybe warts and all. Don't have illusions. You need to get your finance and payroll teams on board. Jack talked about applying for the making up your account on gov.uk, and we all know that dealing with that can be fun and games for anyone that's probably been through the last 18 months with it. But it is just a tool that you need to use to enrol your apprentices on, to access your funding, to know what your levy pot looks like. So you either need, if you're a small business, maybe you have to look at this yourself. If you're a bigger business, then maybe you need your finance and payroll people on board to support you with that, and your HR teams particularly. You have to think about why you want to employ these apprentices. It isn't, you have to think they're not going to be viable people in your workforce maybe for 4 to 6 months before they then start going out and working for you. But being as this is now a level 5, I would consider that potentially you have people within your teams, which is what the point Karen made, is look at the people you've got, and are they people already on that route that would then get a qualification and have something to work towards. The other thing at the moment is attraction back into the industry. I think our industry is not looking good to outside people potentially. We know we've got loads of jobs and lots of potential apprenticeships at this level and at this new level. But it's about selling it and actually saying to them, actually, you're coming in at the right time. The skills shortage is now, but the skills shortage will also be in 2 years, because you guys will be placed for the whole gap that we had of 18 months where a lot of employers took on no apprentices in our industry. So I think that hopefully is a selling point. The other thing is you need your team on board. You need the guys down on the floor that are going to be looking after these young people. And obviously there's no age limit now. So if they're existing people, they could be people that have been doing this for a while. Chris has been joking about people being long in the tooth, but it could be that someone said, you know what, I've done this all, for 10 years, but I've never got a qualification. And you might want to put someone like that through it if that's what they'd like to do. And it actually gets them updated skills and knowledge. But you do need your teams on board. The people that are going to look after these people need to want to impart skills. They need to help them build their portfolios. Karen talked about the endpoint assessment, and we have found that these type of portfolios lend themselves to people who don't learn in the same way as other people. So they can use videos and they can use pictures. You can get witness statements. all of this, it doesn't matter what level you are, would help build a portfolio as well as the written word and everything they've got to produce, which obviously is going to be a higher level at level 5 than it would be for us that we actually deliver now at level 3. Your relationship with your training provider is going to be really important. You know, you need to build that with them. You need to talk about your apprentices all the time. You need to know that they're on track. You need to have a system of recognition and a system of monitoring how they're doing and helping them along that way, and, you know, interim reviews and what support do they need. You've got to be able to afford their salaries. You are paying these people to do a job, and whilst the funding is there for the training, you are paying their salaries, and that you need to just bear that in mind. But you are in effect training your successional needs with any luck, and that's so they're the sort of things I would say. The other thing we have really looked at a lot more in the last couple of years, and particularly as we brought this cohort in, based on the fact that young people have also had a really tough time in the last 18 months, and actually not young people, but anyone looking for work or looking to maybe thinking about an apprentice and changing direction, is that we put in a much stronger buddy and mentor scheme, so that when they're coming in, they have people to support them. So you need buddies on the floor, that are the people that are the day-to-day people. And then we've looked at mentors that are outside of their teams and maybe who do different jobs in the business, to then be their mentors and just be someone that they can go to at any given time. That's sort of everything I can think of to talk about, to think about if you're going to be an employer.
Yeah, I think, again, very, very comprehensive view of things. And just speaking on one of the things from experience, definitely having a buddy or a mentor and someone, things are documented, because when you start off in the audiovisual business, wherever you are, at some point you are going to dry hire some equipment. So even knowing what to put in the box and what you're sending out, is you can actually, you know, right from the very beginning, you can pick up things. Have I got enough extension leads? Have I got the right cables? Can I double check it? Am I left alone? Someone will be telling me what to do that, because when it gets to the other end, I mean, it's crucial, that kind of thing. And also, it's a very point well made that actually there are some people, because in AV you can get kind of pigeonholed or trapped in a corner or a particular junction, and anybody who wants to take things further, they want to know more about lighting, for example. So carrying forward and going back later on to learn something like that and improving their qualifications already, maybe within the same employer, that's an important point as well. So at both ends, I understand that's the kind of, you know, so maybe I will have to sign up and improve my sort of skill base. But it's a point very well made. And I think the thing is, like, having a friend, having a mentor, buddy, whatever you want to call it, is absolutely the top point for me, having worked with teams and things, is like passing on information, or also taking, you know, because when someone's new to something, they do ask the questions that, you know, people either say, oh, well, everybody knows that. But, you know, if someone's there, say, it's a very good point, because they'll come up with things that you've forgotten about, because nobody can remember everything, you know. So, brilliant. I think that's very good observation, Sandra. And obviously it's been a very difficult road, and that's a lot of experience there in what you've just been sort of telling the people who are viewing this now. Jack, would you
I
like
think
to add?
you mustn't underestimate the support that they need. You just mustn't underestimate it.
Yes.
And exactly. You know, and just be prepared for that. But I have to say, I mean, we still have so many of our apprentices with us. Our current cohort got distinction. If you put the time in, then you do reap it, and they stay with you. And the other thing is, don't forget, you can mold these people. You can mold these people. If you do something slightly different in your business to someone else, you can mold them. You can mold them to have your values and the business's values. And they tend to be so loyal. they stay with you. You know what I mean? Eventually they may go if they're on a different career trajectory, but we look at it as supplying people to an industry that we love. So it isn't just about that they stay with us.
Exactly. And I think that's a very important thing, because if you do nurture people and you've got enough things going on, and White Light's a big company, people are loyal and they want to stay in that place because they know if they say, do you know what, I've always wanted to do something like that. Maybe we could look at that in the future. Is that something that you can, and obviously as a receptive employer, you'll say, that's a really good idea. Why don't we do that? We'll set something up ready. And then that's the way you keep people. No, it's very good. Staff retention as well as people
career
hopping
lattices
around is.
Yeah, career lattices, not ladders. People start going in diagonal directions, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay.
Okay.
Any questions?
So, Jack, where do we go? Who's next?
Well, yeah, I'd just like to say thank you again to Sandra for doing that.
No,
it was
absolutely,
really so helpful. And also just to briefly pick up on the workplace mentor point. I think it's a great point. It is best practice for all employers to assign a workplace mentor to an apprentice, and we advise that they are someone who isn't their line manager. Sandra talked about maybe it being someone outside of their immediate team, and I think that's also something important to think about. From a training provider point of view, we support that process. So we provide a workplace mentor handbook that we make available to the employers and to the apprentices, so they can see it from their side as well. And we also run 2 training sessions for workplace mentors every year. So we'll run a session in terms of sort of getting off the ground, if you like, getting up and running, getting started. And then we run a session that is geared towards helping apprentices to complete the process. So we're as well as supporting the apprentices, we support the employers from that point of view.
Okay. Now, Jack, I realise we're running up against it, but we're just after sort of 3 o'clock, I think. So maybe, do you want to roll some of the pre-recorded videos and things from your people who are sort of going to be tutors on your course? People will be supplying the content in different areas, who the people who are employing these people, these are the people that are going to be, and they've got lots of experience. So maybe you want to sort of move to that? Sure,
yeah. So what we thought we'd do is just play a few short pre-recorded videos from the tutor team. So they'll just very briefly introduce themselves and go over what they cover on the course. And then the last video that we see will be from one of our audiovisual technology graduates who graduated from the course which preceded the apprenticeship.
Hello, my name's Chris Burrows, and I'm a Director of Unified Support. We provide audiovisual consultation, support, maintenance and integration services with the aim to help our clients with their technology roadmap. I've been in the audiovisual business for nearly 35 years and have worked for and with a broad range of clients, from government bodies and agencies, global finance, insurance, oil and gas, pharmaceutical, entertainment, through to education. On your course, I aim to give you an understanding of all the elements involved in making an audiovisual space work. From collecting and interpreting a client's brief, translating this brief into a technical scope, selecting the right products to deliver this scope, incorporating the products into a design, transferring the design to a build, through to delivering this build using project management principles in a client's environment, and ultimately getting your clients sign off for your services. I look forward to seeing you on the course and wish you every success for the future.
Hello, my name is Gabriel Thorpe, and I'll be the module tutor for online events and conferencing. The reason I've made this pre-record is because I'm in the background pushing the buttons to make sure that this live event happens today. I have 20 years plus experience producing and operating live events online and in person at venues. With the situation of live events now becoming more common to be held online, we'll be looking at all the elements of how to successfully deliver an event or conference entirely online. We'll be looking at such things as how to set up an NDI network and best practice for vision mixing and what software and hardware works well. We'll also be discussing the crucial way to plan and stay organised when operating an event online. I started in AV as an assistant technician at a college when I was 18, and now I'm head of production at Jacobs Massey. It's the skills that I've picked up along the way that I'm looking forward to sharing with you all.
Hello, my name is Rob Bullard, and I am the module tutor for the professional development module. And it's quite a self-explanatory module in that the apprentices / students have to produce a personal plan and a portfolio of evidence that documents, discusses and records the staff development that they've undertaken, whether that be to work on a new piece of equipment or technology that they need to master, or something more broad within the professional development realm. And the reason why Jack and I decided that I would take this module is, well, I've had nearly, look at the grey hair, I've had nearly 30 years of experience of managing my own professional development, but also for a period of 15 years I was either a manager or a teaching and learning mentor, where I looked after the staff development of a range of different staff, guiding them and helping them in the process. So I should be a good person to take this module. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Jamie Donnelly and I'm an audio specialist. I primarily work with music production and post-production audio, specifically music for games and music for film and TV, as well as some podcast work too. And I work with clients locally, nationally and internationally on a range of projects. Within the college, I'm the program leader for the Audiovisual Technology program's sister course, the Sound and Music Technology program. And on the Audiovisual Technology program, I'll be leading the audio capture module in level 4, where students will learn the knowledge and understanding and the skills behind utilising a range of sound and music technology. And at level 5, we'll be looking at audio mixing and mastering for post-production formats.
Hi, I'm Jason and I'm responsible for the on-site event production module. We'll be covering wireless microphone systems, AV over IP, understanding audio equipment choices and system components and signal flow and conversion, also understanding about microphone placement, room acoustics and audio mixing fundamentals. Alongside this, we're looking at the health and safety and the guidance that are required to follow within live performance environments, and also understanding how CAD modelling software can help us develop live sound systems. Also looking at the aspect of fault finding, installing and testing and operating hardware, including cabling and connectors. Alongside the audio, we'll also be looking at lighting, and hopefully we'll be looking at lighting design and fixtures, being able to perform lighting control fundamental operations, and that's what we're going to be covering in this module.
I'm Kieran Atkins. I'm a recent graduate of the Audiovisual Technology course over at Middlesbrough College through the Open Uni. I'm just here to tell you a little bit about why and how I came to be on that course and my experience with it. So to begin with, I joined the course because it was the first of its kind that I'd seen and heard of, and I'm always down for, you know, trying something new and kind of being there from the bottom up. It's really exciting to kind of see everything that went into making the course what it is today, you know. Really exciting stuff, and the fact that all the lecturers had you know, real world experience and you know, being out there in the commercial settings and the professional settings, it really does you know, it gives you a great lifeline to hold on to when you're speaking to these guys, and the way that they teach is through personal experience. So you know, that was really a driving factor. When you speak to Jack or Andy or Jason or Rob, these you know, they all know exactly what they're talking about because they've done it for so long, and they've been there and done it themselves. You know, this is first-hand experience. So the quality of teaching there is really you know, top stuff, and I can't fault anything with the teaching throughout the 3 years that I was there. You know, it really was a great time, and the stuff I've learned from the 3 years there have made me a really eligible candidate now. You know, I kind of expected to come out of uni and be struggling to look for work and stuff, but you know, I've actually had job offers sent to me from AV companies and things like that, which I mean is unheard of really for a recent graduate. So the job opportunities on the back end of it, as Jack will tell you, I'm sure, it is really incredible. My favourite part of the course is actually, or it was in fact, it was the creative programming, and that really gelled with me. But really, with the course having covering every facet of the AV sector, there's no shortage of things to work on and look at. So I'm sure anyone that joined can find a specialisation within that field, and come away with a great degree. Make some friends, and the lecturers are really great people to just know more than to as well as to be taught by. So yeah, I had a really great time down at Borough College doing AVT, and I'm really thankful. Thank you.
Hello, Jack. That's very useful stuff there. And so I did get a supplementary question from David Willey, which I think we've kind of answered during the session, but we can just reinforce it. He asks, do employers get access to oops, my screen's just flicking up here, so they're probably coming in. Do they get access to the training material so they can support the apprentice, which we've kind of addressed, but maybe you just want to reinforce that?
That's a really good question. Yeah, they get access to everything that the apprentices get access to.
Right. Okay. And so the other question that I'd like to ask myself actually is what help can employers get to recruit an AV technical apprentice, technician apprentice from you? What will they get? We've kind of covered some of this, but I just thought, from your point of view, what help can you give someone who's sort of thinking about going that route?
I think it might be good to bring Holly, either Holly or Tracy or both in on this one, because what I can do is speak to individuals that approach me directly to say, I've heard about this AV apprenticeship, can you tell me about it? But then at the college, we have an apprenticeship support team who are more actively involved in recruitment than I am.
Okay.
So I don't know if Holly or Tracy are still around. I think they are.
If they're still on the line, maybe we can just sort of ask. That's a particular question, but good for what support people are going to get. Are they out there? If not, we're just waiting.
I don't think so. I can see that. I can see their names, Chris. But
you can see their names, yes.
But I don't.
Supporting employers. They're probably getting a rush of inquiries as we speak.
Yeah. I mean, I think just to try and put a bow on that one as much as I can, I would say that the support that we can offer is we as much as possible we are actively promoting the standard. But it's, again, I would come back to that 9 times out of 10, I think the best way to go with this is for employers to recruit directly.
Okay. And so still not, well, and if I was going to apply, so I'd submit my inquiry to, Holly or Karen for this, saying, actually, I just need to know the difference between a SCART cable. Do you use those anymore? Or am I too old-fashioned for words?
Well, if you come to me as a potential apprentice, the first thing I would do, Chris, would be try to match you with an employer. So that's why it's good if employers who are interested in taking on apprentices can let me know. And again, I'll be sending out some information after this to everyone. So if you are an employer who's interested, you want to take on an apprentice, do let me know, because I will add you to my list. And then if any potential apprentices come my way, I can try and match apprentices with employers.
Do you think anybody will be asking about me after this, Jack?
I think we'll be inundated, Chris.
So I'm just amusing myself here. I'm just trying to see what other questions are coming up. Well, there's not too much at the moment coming up there, but I think overall it's given me, well, if it's given me a good idea of what you're aiming for, all the hard work and everything the collaborative nature of the whole thing. And I would just like to sort of add that it's definitely a kind of an area, this whole audio-visual technician approach. I think if people young enough, even in school or before, when they're thinking about doing something, I don't think anybody realizes how big a field it can be depending on who you meet. It's almost a little bit, when I came up to Middlesbrough and I sort of said, you just don't know what's going to happen, because it just really does open, because nobody, even now I have people that I kind of know, they say audiovisual, what is that? They don't stop to think of the whole, I mean, it's vast to actually find someone with all the skills and behaviors, and you don't know, once you immerse yourself in that world, who you're going to meet or contact. I mean, literally, I know people who've not even done anything like that, and they're filmmakers now, for example, or they're stage managers, all because they set up something. When I used to work at the British Museum, just because they set up something and they had a bit of experience and they went further forward and just sort of kind of got out there, and that's before anything was really structured. I mean, that's, I think, is the awareness of this is going to be sort of very, very, very useful for people, you know, as they catch on, and I'm sure they will.
Yeah, I would like to think so. I think one of the things that you rightly touch on is how broad AV is, and what we're trying to do with the standard and with the training program is to reflect how broad it is. So we heard from most of the tutors there going over the areas that they cover, but broadly we've got audio, video, and projection, on-site events, online events, computer networking, integrated systems, and professionalism. So all of those areas are covered.
Brilliant. Well, I think, you know, just from my own point of view, hosting this event, if that's what we would call it, is to thank everybody for taking part, you know, and if you've got any questions, this will remain on Jacobs Mass's YouTube channel for evergreen reference, and it's like this, in a sense, is the next stage of the process, and I just think it's something it's a step in evolution, and the time is right now to expand into it. So I'd just like to thank everybody again. Thank you, Jack, and everybody that's taken part, the questions, and I'm sure, you know, I'll watch this back now and it'll become even clearer to me where we are, and that's really. And you can have a straw poll amongst you how many people want to put me on an apprenticeship scheme to refresh my skills. So thanks, Jack. Thanks, everybody. And we'll call this over and out from Chris Power, Chairman of Audiovisual Cultural Forum, on behalf of Jacobs Massey and Jack and everybody at Middlesbrough and all the people who've sort of been our guests. Goodbye.